Hi everybody, my name's Christine and I love hydroponics. When I say the word hydroponics, what do you think of? The first thing that comes to your mind? I think I know what it is. It's pineapples. Look, check out these roots. I love hydroponics because you can see the roots. But today I wanted to talk to you about hydroponic gardening at home. How it is not magic, it's mostly just math. And hopefully by the time you're done watching, you are going to want to try this at home. So let's get started. So hydroponic gardening, just the basics. Here we have an example of hydroponic gardening. These are actually 3D printed boxes, and inside of them is a nutrient solution. It goes directly to the roots of the plants, so your plants get big fast. And you can see I've grown some Roma tomatoes here. I have a recirculated water system that I attach to the 3D printed boxes, and it even has a water pump, an air pump attached to it. So this is like a more complicated method of hydroponic gardening, but it's where your mind starts to go when you get started. So what is hydroponic gardening? So hydroponics is a method of gardening that doesn't involve any dirt at all. Your plant's roots are fed directly with a nutrient solution. You create the nutrient solution, you tailor it to your plant's needs, depending on the plant, and your roots get fed directly. Here we can see I've got some strawberry plants that I grew for a school function, and they are in homemade DIY hydroponic rails. Pretty cool. Why do I love hydroponics? Why would anybody love hydroponics? Your plants grow faster. Okay, like I said again and again, the roots are fed directly, so they don't have to go and seek out the nutrients and the food and the water. You give it all to them right there. So the roots stay small, plant grows big. Like I said, plant grows big, higher yields, more fruits, better plant. Water conservation. You're not pouring water into dirt and it's, going away, it's getting absorbed. You're putting it into a watertight container, it's staying there, it's not going anywhere. You know exactly how much water you're putting in there, and when it gets low, you fill it up again. So it seems pretty simple. Space efficiency. Check out all these pineapples I have growing on my back patio in Florida. Look how big and how beautiful they are. Those were actually the first time I grew hydroponic pineapples, and I fit them all into a very small space. Since we're not using dirt and bugs love dirt, we have less pests, we have less soil-borne diseases, so we use less pesticides. That's better for us, that's better for our plants. No weeding required. Unless you're planting weeds, you don't get any weeds. Year-round growing. This is in a controlled environment. Hydroponic gardening involves, if you do it like old school and very scientific, you use grow lights, you use fans, you recirculate your air. In controlled environments, you don't need to worry about the season that it is, the month that it is. You can grow all year round. And if you're doing that, you have better control over your growing conditions. So hydroponics at home, how to do it. Here's my daughter, she's eating some of those delicious Roma tomatoes, and actually I grew tomatoes for her. She can eat them like apples. So she's having a good time with hydroponic gardening. All right, hydroponics, countertop models. All right, so we have one here. This is the Aero Garden. It has a telescopic light. It's adjustable, so if your plants are small, it goes down. If they're bigger, it goes up to a certain level. It has a built-in water pump, and that water pump circulates the water throughout these different ports inside the top where you plant your seeds. So it keeps the seed pod inside moist, and that's great for your plant. The display here has reminders for when to add the fertilizer, when to top off the water, how long it's been since you planted your garden. So it develops really good hydroponic gardening habits. So that is a countertop model of hydroponics. You can buy these online, easy to use, very user-friendly. Next up, we have a crack key method. So crack key is a method of gardening that does not involve any electricity, no pumps. It's just a nutrient solution inside a watertight container. And here we have my eggplants. They are doing very well just in this container with the solution in it. Check that out. Beautiful. I can kind of like hide behind them. So this is crack key. And let's take a closer look there at my eggplant inside the crack key container. The hydroponic gardening allows you to see the roots, and they are a beautiful white bone color. That eggplant is really happy. All right, deep water culture. So let's say for your bigger plants, once they've gotten too tall to be in a countertop model, you're gonna wanna put them in a bigger container. For instance, tomatoes, pepper plants, their roots, even in hydroponics, can grow pretty big. So we're not gonna wanna keep them in small containers like my crack key one. You're gonna wanna give it more room for those roots. And not only that, but the smaller the container, the more you're gonna have to top it off. And so deep water culture buckets are available to buy online. They're like $60 to $70. They're pre-made. You don't need to do any kind of like drilling or anything like that. What they are pre-made 5-gallon buckets, and they have a prefabricated net pot built in. That's where you put your plant, and then you fill it up with these clay hydroton pebbles. The bucket itself has a sight tube. So if your water level gets low, you can see it visually from the outside instead of having to pick up the plant and look inside. And so you can see from the outside, and also you can attach an air pump to this tube here, and it can oxygenate your roots. And oxygenating your water and recirculating your water is really good because all those minerals that would fall to the bottom of the bucket get pushed back up so they can be absorbed by your plant. So that's a deep water culture bucket. Coco coir and perlite. This is another method of hydroponic gardening. So we're used to, in traditional gardening, big bags of dirt, and with coco coir, it's a compressed brick of shredded coconut husks. It's sterile. It has a very low EC and a very neutral pH. So it is considered hydroponics because you are supplying the nutrients from your solution and by no other biological process that goes on in dirt. So coco coir mixed with perlite acts like dirt. The perlite helps with the drainage because coco coir holds water really well. That's one of the great things about it, and it needs some help with drainage. So coconut coir with some perlite, perfect. And when you mix them together, you get something that looks very much like dirt. Check it out. This is a reconstituted brick, 3 bricks of coco coir. So it's very familiar, and people can kind of adjust to hydroponics more easily that way. And I'll show you how they like it, how plants like it. This is my daughter's lemon plant, and it is in coco coir. See? Looks like dirt. So I personally, I like coco coir. I use it a lot, but for me, I like hydroponic gardening in containers because I don't like watering things a lot. I could just see I need to refill this bucket or this container, but with this, I'm kind of like guessing, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? I don't know. So, but for most people, coco coir and perlite is a very familiar way of gardening. Grow lights are also used in hydroponic gardening. So here we have a Mars Hydro. So this is a very well-known brand of grow lights next to a kind of like a generic brand of grow lights. Still functional, still does what it's supposed to do. I love the Mars Hydro. It's a lot more sleek, and I like the quality of lights better, but I've also used the Gixxer. And you can see I have these hanging from like this, actually probably this very one. I just put the grow light on top, and then I've got plants underneath it, and I can roll this around anywhere I want to in my kitchen or whatever, and I have an entire hydroponic garden just rolling around my house. So that's how you use grow lights. You can put them on timers so that they're not on all the time, and you can mimic the sun so that the plants grow and they have all the light that they need. Like tomato plants need a whole lot of light, very concentrated amount of light, whereas lettuce needs a lower kind of light, and that's how you use grow lights. This is an air pump. You can attach your air pump to So this is an air pump, and this is an air stone, and this is what you use to oxygenate your water. You can attach the end of this tube to the sight tube of a deep water culture bucket, or you can attach this tube and kind of stick it down to the bottom of a reservoir so that it circulates the water up. And it's really easy to turn a cracky container into a deep water culture container just by using an air pump or an air stone. So that's really great about hydroponics. Here is a starter list for hydroponic gardening. So we have our pH and EC meters, which I'll be going into in a minute, and that is how we test our nutrient solution, what we're feeding our plant. We have net pots. Net pots are what we put the plant in, and then we put the entire net pot into the system. So they come in different sizes. This is a 3-inch net pot. They have ones up to 6 inches, 4 inches. I've used them all. They're all really great. Clay hydroton pebbles. That's these little pebbles. They kind of look like cocoa pebbles. I thought about tricking my kids to eat them before, but I'm not that mean. This is what we use to stabilize the plant inside the net pot. It also retains water pretty well. It helps with the water retention. Then we have rock wool cubes. Rock wool cubes look like this. They're just like little sponges that you put your seed into. Keeps moist. You put this inside of a net pot with some clay pebbles on top, and you have your plant there. Then we have our nutrients, which I'm also going to go into in the next slide. This is my nutrients. There's a lot out there, but we'll go into that in a little bit. And then we have pH adjuster, and that is used to stabilize our water, to adjust the pH so that the nutrients are available to the plant. Obviously a watertight container, unless you're going to be going the cocoa coir perlite mix route. So in that case, you'll need cocoa coir, some sort of pot, and your perlite. So that is just a basic starter list for hydroponic gardening. Tools. So I'm going to go into the tools because I'm sure it seems like magic or science, and luckily it's not. It's math. Really simple math too. Once it clicks, you'll get it. So we're going to talk about the 2 things you're going to want to measure in your nutrient solution. You're going to use an electroconductivity meter and a pH meter. So pH meters. This is what a pH pen looks like. This is a Blue Lab pH pen. It measures how alkaline or acidic your nutrient solution is. The pH level determines how available those nutrients are to your plant, how soluble those minerals are to your plant. So it's important to get that level correct and to know that plants have preferences for pH. So this little guy will tell you your pH level. Then we have EC or ppm meters, that's interchangeable. And here we have a Blue Lab truncheon meter, and we have a Blue Lab, this is the pH pen. Truncheon meter and your conductivity pen. They test for the same things, but they have, this one's a lot longer, so if I was using a 5-gallon bucket, this is perfect for stirring all the way at the bottom. But they both measure the same thing. They measure the level of nutrients in your solution. So you're going to want to know that because plants have preferences. Especially for the growth stage that they're in. You're going to feed a smaller plant less. You're going to feed lettuce different than you would a tomato or pepper plant. So these will test the amount of nutrients in your solution. Nutrients. the hydroponic fertilizer. There's a lot of brands out there. I use the General Hydroponics 3-part series. These are bottles that have different concentrations of different minerals for each stage of your plant's growth. Okay? On the back of these bottles, there's a chart, and it tells you how much to feed your plant for whatever stage it's in. So if you think about it like a recipe, you're going to use, for a small plant like cuttings and seedlings, 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. This is a gallon, so 1/4 teaspoon of green per gallon, 1/4 teaspoon of purple per gallon, and 1/4 teaspoon of pink per gallon. If you're feeding a bigger plant, like a tomato or a pepper plant, and it's already, really big, you're going to be feeding it transition to bloom or aggressive vegetative growth, and those recipes call for 3 teaspoons per gallon of green, 2 teaspoons per gallon of purple, so you can see how they changed the level and which to put more of, and 1 teaspoon per gallon of the pink. So they kind of guide you on how to adjust your nutrient solution for that plant, for the age, for the growth stage of that plant. So this pineapple cutting is not going to be eating this aggressive vegetative growth. It's going to need something, for smaller plants, for cuttings. It's just developing its root structure. So that's how you use a hydroponic fertilizer inside of a container. Just know the size of your container and then do the math on that. So as far as measuring it out, when you go to the pharmacy, you get all these little medicine droppers, and you put them in a drawer. You might throw them out, but these have perfect measurements on them to measure out your nutrient solution. So 1/4 teaspoon per gallon is right here on this medicine dropper. Just plunge up 1/4 teaspoon and per gallon. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Once you've put your nutrients into the container, you're going to want to adjust that pH so that that plant can access what you just put in there. And plants have preferences. So let's say, plants have preferences. So you're going to adjust your pH after nutrients are added, and you're going to use a very small amount of each solution. This is pH down and this is pH up. So if you might notice that the pH up is pretty much brand new and really full, and that's because I found that pH down is what I usually need in order to adjust my water so that the nutrient level is perfect. These bottles come with these little plungers, and they are small plungers because you just use a tiny amount. Here's easy steps on how to make a nutrient solution. So you're going to add water to your container. You're going to add nutrients to your container and then test to make sure that that nutrient level is in that optimal range for whatever plant you're growing. Then you're going to adjust your pH, and then you're going to test it again. You're going to use the truncheon meter or the conductivity pen to test the nutrient levels you added, and then you're going to use your pH pen to test the pH levels in your solution. Pretty easy, right? How do you remember when you were growing a whole bunch of different plants what each plant needs and likes? Write it down somewhere, keep track of it somewhere. I make a chart, or I'll use a whiteboard and keep it next to my garden, just to remember that each plant is not going to be necessarily having the same nutrient solution given to it. So here we can see that broccoli likes its pH within a certain range of 6.0 to 6.8. Eggplant likes 5.5 to 6.5. And lettuce and tomato like theirs within the same range. So broccoli is kind of liking it in a different range, but if I keep it within 6, it seems like I could feed, if it wasn't for these differing levels down here of the nutrient concentration, I could definitely keep pH water for each plant in the same container. However, we can see that each plant likes its nutrient solution to be a different strength, We can see that broccoli likes 2.8 and lettuce likes a lot less than that. It likes 0.8 to 1.8. So that's how you're going to keep track of what kind of solution you're going to be feeding your plants. Let's do a demo of how to mix that. So I'm actually going to go back to the chart before, because it's going to show us what we're going to make this nutrient solution. So here we have a 1 gallon container of water, just plain old water. And the first step is adding our nutrients. So let's use the chart on the back of the bottle to figure out how much per gallon we're going to add of each nutrient bottle. So let's feed our lettuce. Let's use a very small amount. Let's make a recipe for cuttings and seedlings, something very small rooted. 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of green, 1/4 teaspoon of gallon purple, 1/4 teaspoon of pink. Grab your little plungers and let's go. So whichever brand of fertilizer you're using, make sure that you read the manufacturer's instructions on the steps on how to mix it, because for general hydroponics, they want us to start with the purple bottle. This purple bottle has certain minerals that need more time to dissolve, so we go with this first. And we're going to want 1/4 teaspoon per gallon to feed for cuttings and seedlings. This is 1/4 teaspoon, so not very big, so you can see why these bottles last quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and drop that in there and then stir. And you can see as I stir, my truncheon meter is lighting up, so it's telling me the strength of the solution as I add more to it. Right now we are at 0.4 to 0.6. Then we're going to want to add the green. So 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of the green. Grab your second plunger and measure out 1/4 teaspoon. Yep, right there. And last, the pink. Quarter teaspoon. And give it a stir. So now my meter is going to start lighting up and probably show a different light. Let me just use let's use the smaller pen. So we're going to go ahead and turn it on, and we're going to give it a swirl in the container. So right now the concentration of the solution is 0.7. So if we go to the chart, 0.7 is actually almost within the range of the lettuce. So this would be a perfect nutrient level for my lettuce. Let's test the pH next. Grab your pH pen and give it a swirl in the solution. So my pH range is 6.6. Our lettuce likes it at 5.5 to 6.5. So now we're going to adjust our pH. We need to adjust it down. So we're going to use pH down. And we're going to put your goggles on and protect your beautiful eyes. So like I mentioned before, you use a very small amount of these stabilizers. So let's plunge up just a little bit, like this, and add some. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to start with 3 drops. I don't want to adjust it too much down, because then I have to adjust it back up and keep altering my water with those adjustments. Alright, then test your pH and make sure that you got it in that level. Alright, right, so just by adding those few little drops, my pH has been adjusted to 6.2. And that is within that range that that lettuce likes. So that's it. No more adjusting. This solution is now ready for my lettuce to consume. And that's how you measure your nutrients solution for your plants. All right, next. DIY hydroponic systems. So we've gone over the commercial hydroponic gardening systems you can buy online. Hydroponics is also just, it could be a cup with your nutrient solution in it. But let's say you wanted to make something bigger or better, like maybe you want to add a submersible pump and use some PVC fittings and just go crazy, a 5-gallon bucket and some saws and make water shoot everywhere. You can get super creative in hydroponics. This is the Hydro Power Mini Tower. This is a lot of fun to watch. It has a submersible pump that shoots water up through the center and distributes it throughout these different ports, and it's just really cool. But it's also crack key containers, things like this. So this is just a container that I bought at Home Depot. It's HDX 6.5 quart, and I drilled some holes in the top of it using a hole saw and a drill. This is a hole saw. Okay, it's an attachment that you can put onto your drill to drill these holes that will accommodate whatever size net pot you're using. So this is a 4-inch hole saw, and I used it to drill holes in the top of my container. See? And then the net pot just rests right inside there. So it's really easy to make. Just pour your nutrient solution in there, you've got a crack key container. Let's say you want to cut PVC pipe and make something really grand. You can also use PVC cutters. These are awesome. Come on. I swear I use it all the time. There you go. All right, so this one will cut up to 2 inches. See that? Okay, let's get it. See that? It will cut right through PVC and make it whatever size you want. And you can make something really awesome. You can also put your system on timers. This is an outdoor digital timer, so you can actually put it on your pumps if you're using a pump. And this is a Wi-Fi timer. So I use these all the time for indoor gardening. All right, and I also made hydroponic gardening techie. This is a 3D printed hydroponic container and a 3D printed lid. And I use these to grow those tomatoes that were in the very first slide. I grew them outside. Hydroponic gardening outside, you're going to want to keep your solution within a certain temperature range. Otherwise you can have issues like root rot, and you'll have to add certain things to your water in order to cure root rot. But it can be done outside. I've grown pineapples outdoors, which you saw on the first slide. Pointer. So these were actually grown outdoors. These strawberries were grown outdoors. These pineapples were grown outdoors. So it can be done outside. Just keep your water within, keep it nice and cold. It's got to be like 74 to 80 degrees. Keep it within that range. If it gets too hot, just add some frozen water bottles into your solution, and that's it. So that's hydroponic gardening at home. I hope that I've stimulated your mind a little bit, and I hope that you go out there and give it a try, because it's not magic, it's math. So thank you for watching.